We need to focus on putting our best foot forward as a city.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone focusing on, we got to get ready for the games. No, we got to get ready for the people today here in LA. I am not, what really upsets me when everyone's kind of got this goalpost for 3 years from now, or because FIFA is coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Angelinos deserve this now.
Yeah.
And that's my problem, is everybody has this lengthy goalpost. And for me, my goalpost is here every single day. We should be all showing up to make sure that our city is cleaner, is safer, is more financially secure for the businesses that want to operate here, and are creating jobs that are going to help buoy the economic mobility for families in the city. And that's what we need to be focused on.
Yo, welcome to another episode of In a Minute with Evan Lovett, coming to you live from the heart of Los Angeles. And I am here with Los Angeles native, San Fernando High graduate, somebody who is absolutely passionate, prepared, persistent about positive change in Los Angeles, and somebody I'm excited to speak with, Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez. Monica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me in.
Absolutely. She represents LA City's 7th Council District, which includes Sylmar, Mission Hills, Pacoima, Lakeview Terrace, Sunland Tonga, my hometown in North Hills, Shadow Hills, and La Tuna Canyon. Is that it?
That's right.
And she has some very strong thoughts about Los Angeles. So we are going to get into that. But first, I got to talk about our sponsor, Arto Brick. Arto Brick is a third-generation LA American dream story, running a factory, a manufacturing factory down in Gardena with jobs, with opportunity for all kinds of people in Los Angeles. And perhaps most importantly, they are the brick and tile manufacturer for many of our landmarks, including at Olvera Street and La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, which I visited this weekend, by the way. Beautiful, great. Thank you, Gloria Molina, for making that happen. But thank you, Arto Brick, for keeping jobs in manufacturing in Los Angeles and keeping our landmarks looking beautiful. So, all right, Monica, thank you for being here. We have a little bit of a history, good history, that is, by the way. So I really appreciate sitting face to face with you.
Ditto. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I do want to tell a story first about how we initially met. I did a story on LA was going to ban rodeo, which is very important in the culture of Los Angeles. And I tried to honor Councilwoman Rodriguez by including a picture of her, which she was, very adamant, kind of pointing at the picture. And I was like, this is a great photo. This is going to show her strength and how dedicated she is to this issue. And I received a call later that day from her office that the councilwoman wants to speak with me. And I was like, oh, great. She's going to pat me on the back for doing such a good story. And, the picture used may have represented something that I did not intend. So that was our first interaction, but it gave me a taste of who Monica Rodriguez is. Somebody who stands up for your principles and somebody who is very dedicated. So let's talk about that first. You are genuine, you are passionate, you are principled. Where does that come from?
It comes from my upbringing. I am the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants. My parents settled here in the States with their families in East Los Angeles. And, look, my last name is Rodriguez. Right. It's not, it's not Kennedy. It's a humble, hardworking, I'm very proud of my last name. Yeah. And it's frankly what has formed and made me who I am. And so it comes from my upbringing, it comes from my family, it comes from my culture that informs everything that I do, that there are no shortcuts, that it's about hard work. And, I'm very fortunate to have been raised in a family that did all that they could to give me greater opportunities here in this country. And I've met every opportunity with great vigor and passion to be the very best version of myself.
And that's what Los Angeles is all about. And that's why you're a great representative. And I appreciate that. You mentioned your family. Your father fought in Vietnam, I believe.
That's right.
And was also a firefighter. What was his impact on you?
Everything. My dad still impacts me today. Being raised in our household, the only thing that was ever expected of us was to try our best at anything that we did. It wasn't about getting straight A's. It was just about just try your best. And I knew, and he knew, that if we just tried our best, there was nothing that we couldn't do. And so my dad earned his citizenship in service in Vietnam, came back, got that first union job working at the General Motors plant in Van Nuys, which is what brought us to the San Fernando Valley, because I was born in East L.A.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was about a year after that that he got on to the LA City Fire Department after the adoption of the consent decree. And so you have to understand what that means. He was essentially, you think about breaking barriers in a department that didn't want to accept him as a Latino, one among the first Latinos after the adoption of the consent decree. So it's, you know, watching him earn such tremendous respect in that department, being incredibly decorated. He was one of the youngest firefighters of the year in the LA City Fire Department's history. And that was because he showed up trying his very best every single day, and he earned the respect of his peers. And that was the example that I had growing up, was that the odds were often stacked against him, and he overcame it through persistence, through his good actions and good deeds and his good work. And that example is what gives me everything that I need to do my job today.
Were you always a motivated kid?
Yeah, you know, my folks, my folks would say, we were like, whose kid is she? I don't know what kid is student council president at 6th grade of their elementary school, and then, you know, student body president of their high school. My dad was like, who are you? But yeah, I just, I don't know what it was. I thought I was going to be the first Latina Annie. I was very into the arts and very into musical theater. And I was going to, that's what I wanted to do.
Did you sing?
Oh yeah, I sang, and I was a musical, well, you know, just in the car. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But it was the LA riots that really changed everything in my life for me. So, and really put me on a path to being a change maker for my city. And I was just determined to figure out how to make our city better from that moment on.
Now, you attended Occidental after you went to San Fernando High. And I want to mention that because San Fernando High is a proud high school. San Fernando is a great independent city, has produced some politicians, some very successful Los Angeles and California politicians. And you follow in that lineage. You went to Occidental afterwards. Occidental, by the way, very underappreciated university, by
Barack
the way.
Obama went there.
Barack Obama, Ben Affleck, previous guest comedian Eddie Gorton. You have a whole bunch of Sam Rubin, former KTLA legend, Pat Morrison, still writing for the LA Times, somebody who I'm kind of following in her footsteps as far as just the love of the history of Los Angeles. Alfonso Bell, founder of Bel Air, and Monica Rodriguez, all Occidental alum. But was it at Occidental that you sort of started your aspirations, your higher political aspirations? Or what did the experience at Occidental, was that during the riots time, or was that a different?
No, actually, so it was my senior year in high school. I was at San Fernando. I came home and watched the LA riots unfold live on television. I watched Reginald Denny get beat live on television. I watched everything unfold live. And, you know, I have to remind everybody at that time, you know, my dad was on duty. And he was among those first deployed to the epicenter of Florence and Normandy. And it's a time before Facebook, before cell phones. And so we didn't get that evening call from my dad to check in and see what was going on, how things were going. And I stayed up all night. We didn't get that call from my dad until 4 o'clock in the morning. And all we heard were news reports of firefighters getting shot, and I was just watching everything unfold live on television. So it was that moment that was really that inflection point for me that said, I'm going to do something different. My father, his fire truck sustained multiple rounds from a semi-automatic. He was nearly hit. The windshield was shattered. And that really was the change that made me say, okay, forget musical theater. You're going to use your voice for something else. And so I went to Oxy, really focused on, how am I going to learn how to fix my city? And it was after my second year at Oxy that I tapped on another alumnus door, Mike Hernandez. and asked him, I called him and I just said, hey, I'm calling you for a job. And he laughed and he says, well, I'll give you an internship for the summer.
Right.
And he ended up subsequently hiring me. He to this day, he says, Monica, no one worked like you did. I worked with such urgency to learn. I was hungry, and I'm always hungry to learn, to figure out. Yeah. And so that's who I am. It's just my nature. And I want to learn. I want to innovate. I want to figure out how things work, and I want to fix it and make it better. And I want to get to the root causes of what's stemming from a lot of these challenges. And so that's really my body of work. But I learned how to do that from the bottom up because I didn't believe that anybody should become elected not knowing how to really maximize the use of that power. And I went to learn amongst some of the giants of political history.
Yeah.
And that was at a time when, Richard Alatorre was on the council, John Ferraro was the president. This is pre-term limits. So I got to get an entire education on how to make the city work from some of the greatest legends, and including Mayor Reardon.
Mayor Reardon. Now, did you know that you wanted to run for office, or at what point did that strike you?
I think, yes. At that point, I kind of knew I was going to either work in a council office or I was going to run for office.
Right.
And, I thought it was really important to learn how to be effective, because anyone can run for office. Anybody can take the job. It's doing the job that matters and delivering the results. And that's what I really spent a lot of time growing up learning how to do, both in city government, outside of city government in the private sector, and then also working at LA Unified to help build new schools, because I understood the entire ecosystem of what it takes to support our communities. And I wanted to learn at the very granular level how to be effective.
Every rung of the ladder teaches you,
right?
And they all depend on each other to go all the way up, which is so important. You mentioned community, and community is going to be a big theme today because you are absolutely dedicated. I always see you out there, whether it's the beautification programs or just honoring the legacy restaurants in your district and everything. First, I want you to talk, it's kind of a broad question, but talk to me about your district and what you're proud of and maybe what that represents. Because again, the Northeast Valley doesn't really get a lot of attention, necessarily on the LA scale, LA perspective. And I'm a proud Valley person, of course. But tell us a little bit about those communities and what they represent, what they mean to you.
Well, having grown up in these very same communities, it's a very special place. It's where I know some of the hardest working people, most humble people live and work and want to create an environment and generational opportunities for their families, no different than mine when we first moved into this neighborhood, right? And we lived in Arleta. So I know how important it is because that was my experience growing up. And it was such a beautiful network of people that supported each other. I think about, my third grade teacher, Anita Zepeda from Sharp Avenue. She was the person I had swear me in because so many people are part of the support network that helps us achieve our greatest potential. And so I'm very fortunate to live and represent a district that I've not only lived in my whole life and have so many friends who still live there, but they are amongst the same people that are continuing to support the next generation, are continuing to reinvest in our community. So what I love, the diversity of my district is very different and unique. And it's unlike any other part of the city because we have so many rural areas. We have this urban wildland interface. We've got all the foothill communities. We've got this beautiful equestrian community, which is how I became the advocate to protect rodeo, because there are cultural activities there that we are just so incredibly proud of, the charros, the escaramuza, but you also have Western riding activities, dressage. We have an incredibly diverse district with a number of amenities that I'm really proud of that we're helping to put on the map. When I think about Hanson Dam Aquatic Center, for example, where had I not pushed Rec and Parks to have that very first movies in the pool at the pool, the rest of the city wouldn't be enjoying them right now. And so I'm very excited about the types of events and activities that I've produced in my district that are now helping to put us on the radar for more parts of the city to come and enjoy. And I will tell you, from my drone show that we did for the 4th of July, people come from South L.A., they come from everywhere to come to our events. Our movie nights at the pool, people are telling me all the time, oh, they're coming from, from South L.A. or they're coming from Metro.
Watermelon Festival was in your district,
right?
And I remember going to that where, first of all, I was like, okay, it's going to be fun. But it was massive.
Right.
And to your point, people not just coming from LA, there were people from out of the county that were coming, that were like coming from all over. So, I mean, that is really good to make that a destination. And I think, talking to some other folks over there in the private sector, there are going to be more events of that nature over there, which would be really neat to make that area of the valley a destination. So I think that that's really cool that you're doing that. You mentioned the diversity in the district. It is primarily Latino. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. What does it mean to you to be only the 3rd Latina ever elected to Los Angeles City Council?
It's a huge badge of honor in our city's history, 244 years. And, it's taken me how long, to become the 3rd. And, we've since grown that number, but it's still woefully behind when you consider the demographics, when you think about, the machismo that we had to overcome in order to get there. I mean, I'll tell you, even in spite of all of my experience in learning how to be effective in this role, the amount of times I've been, mansplained or told, have my ideas repeated by a colleague who has a little less pigmentation and gender. It's amazing to me how it still exists. And it's just on the natural, it happens to women in every industry. It's not unique to politics, but it's why I've been such a loud and persistent voice, because I work too damn hard to allow anybody to try and put me, sideline me or my community. And so it's a tremendous badge of honor. When Gloria Molina died, her daughter, Valentina, has sent me some of the most beautiful messages, and it's been amazing how many people have actually said to me, a couple of people, her included, she's like, man, my mom would be so proud of you, chingona, like you just keep showing up and you fight back. And that strength and tenacity, it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy. And you get characterized a certain way for it, but I'm very principled in fighting for my community, making sure that we have a voice and that we don't get sidelined by anybody, especially by people who are attempting to exploit our community, which is unfortunately something that happens with regularity.
Yeah, very unfortunate. In your district, and I'm going to get on a broader Los Angeles perspective in a little bit, but I do want to ask you a moderately difficult question. What needs the most improvement in your district at this point?
Infrastructure. I have been very focused in helping to secure additional infrastructure dollars. I've got very wide streets that invite a lot of speeding, burnouts, like a lot of the parts of the valley, which is why while I was public safety chair, I did a lot to help change the physical environment of a lot of our streets to curtail street racing because it's dangerous. And working on those issues, I've secured over $100 million of state grants to really reconfigure and work on some of our streets, from Sepulveda with the Mission Mile, because, I have the only mission in the city is in my district. So come to the San Fernando Mission.
It's where I was married. My wife and I were married there.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Absolutely. Super beautiful.
Every quinceañera, it's a beautiful place. And I want it to be more, I want it to be a place where people visit more. And so we're going to be investing in changing the infrastructure on Sepulveda it's called Mission Mile. Yeah. That's going to have both the pedestrian connection that leads all the way to Brand Park, which is also connected to the Mission. So I really want to make these spaces more of an attraction where people will come visit and stay and see all the parts of Los Angeles, not just go to Hollywood, check the box, or go to Disneyland and check the box.
Telling my story, absolutely. Yeah. And the Mission, please go see San Fernando. It really is beautiful and so historic. I mean, come on, that's where our part of Los Angeles started. Now, positive side in your district is, let's say, Operation Bright Spot.
Yeah.
Something that really resonates with me. I'm somebody who I'm fortunate enough to be able to walk to the studio. I'm the guy literally like picking up trash on my way to work. And, you know, it's unfortunately every day there's more trash, but it's so important to have that, you know, positivity in your community and keep it clean. And one of the quotes that you've said, a clean city is a safe city. And especially in Los Angeles, and the narrative about Los Angeles is, oh, it's so dangerous. And speak on that for a little bit.
Well, again, it's much like the broken window theory, but people feel safer when their community is clean, when it is lit, and that feeling isn't going to be identified or secured in a statistic that's trying to convince you that you should feel safer because crime is down. The reality is how we feel about our neighborhoods is really built on the cleanliness, on the accessibility, on the, you know, your feeling of comfort in your own neighborhood. But I will tell you, like, Bright Spot was born because I remember every Saturday, my folks would take that square head shovel, cleaning up the gutters, sweeping up the leaves. There was such an enormous sense of pride about our city. And we didn't expect everybody else to take care of us. It was our responsibility. We each took the responsibility and sense of pride to keep our neighborhoods clean. And Bright Spot was about making sure that I could meet where the city ended in terms of its service delivery, power washing sidewalks. Yes. We have huge public transit dependency in the Northeast. That said, you know, that ridership, you know, someone's taking a soda, they spill it on the ground, it's dirty, so power washing for me is one of my favorite parts of Bright Spot because I love seeing, we will never build out new sidewalks across the city. So why don't we just take care of what we've got and maintain it and make it look beautiful for everyone and for our commercial corridors to be more successful because it looks more inviting and it's clean.
It's that pride in the neighborhood, you know, and it is the absolute truth when whether you're driving, you're walking, however you're getting around. I mean, you just feel it's inviting when it's clean and you don't want to see the trash and the muck and the dirt. So I think that really is important because that starts building a sense of pride in those neighborhoods. And then people see that it's clean, then they keep everything clean. Like you said, it's your independent responsibility, your property or outside your property. But when everybody starts doing it, that's when you get these beautiful neighborhoods and this pride and the sense of community. Because to me, it's always like, you know, would you let your child ride his or her bike to the park and something like that? And the cleanliness is a big part of that because, you know, if they're dodging trash leads to something else, and then you see needles and, you know, then it gets out of hand. So Bright Spot is a really great, important thing that will help buoy the community and does. I love your before and afters, everything on the post. Now, the state of Los Angeles, much has been said on this show and elsewhere. You are outspoken and direct. Things are absolutely not perfect in this city. I'm a big cheerleader of this city, but we know that this year has really uncovered and magnified some pretty major issues affecting Los Angeles. And you are not shy about being a vocal advocate of causes you believe in, but a vocal opponent to maybe decisions or, in specific instances, votes that, you know, you've been the lone dissenting vote on multiple issues, or one of two to support LA Fire Department Chief Kristen Crawley. You oppose cuts in Mayor Bass's budget, vocally minimum wage for tourism workers, which we can get into. I think that's big, and people may not understand really what that issue means. But I want to talk about, first and foremost, what do you think of the state of Los Angeles right now?
We're certainly in no shortage of challenges that we're confronting. But when I think about our city's history and our resilience, we have examples of how we've come back. I remember after the '84 Olympics, what an enormous sense of pride. We were traveling with our LA's the place sweatshirts. And subsequently you had the riots, you had the floods, you had the earthquake. We were just battered.
And floods, and nobody remembers there were floods in there too. Yeah, right.
It was like fire floods. Earthquakes.
The T-shirts of the 4 seasons of Los Angeles. Oh,
right.
Come on.
And then, but it was like, and I still love LA.
Right.
And I still believe in the strength of our city and our ability to recover. But it's gonna take some very hard conversations and decisions. We're at a different time where we used to have a number of really incredible civic leaders in Los Angeles. Sadly, you've seen the departure of a lot of very large-scale corporate, civic leaders leaving our city.
Right.
And I don't know if that's globalization. I don't know, everyone's on Zoom now. There's definitely some differences with how our city is at this juncture. But I still very much believe that we have the power and the ability to recover from this in a very meaningful and strong way without inflicting any other wounds on ourselves. And that's where, again, our budget is very strained.
Right.
But we need to invest in areas that will help to garner greater revenue generation.
Right.
So, yes, I spoke out against Mayor Bass's budget. Number one, how do you eliminate an economic workforce development department when we have to prepare the next generation of workforce for 21st century jobs, when we have to support small businesses that are struggling and trying to make it all work? So it's all cyclical, and it all really matters to reinvest in these things. We've seen impacts to public safety. That's huge. So all of these priorities, we need to have honest conversations, because while I know homelessness is very, an important issue of our time.
And which you've been outspoken.
Well, I've been outspoken because I've seen a lot of misuse of public dollars. And not just LASA. I've seen a lot of duplication. I've seen a lot of misuse of public funds, and I'm not going to condone it.
Right.
So my job is to fight to maximize the resources for the city, to make sure that people feel the tangible results of our work and that they trust their local government. And they have good reason to have their concerns right now, and I'm just going to continue to be the steward to advocate for them.
Why do you think there's been a loss of trust in local government?
Well, we've seen we've seen several individuals that have betrayed the trust of the public in local government. But I would say when you continue to see billions of dollars being spent on homelessness, for example, and you don't see significantly more progress, or the elephant in the room, Inside Safe costs $7,000 to house a single individual for 1 month in a motel. I know Angelenos that survive on far less.
Of course.
And $7,000 a month for a motel room is a mortgage where, right?
Nice neighborhood.
Right.
Really
so
nice neighborhood.
Make it make sense. And my job is knowing that I have the trust, and I have been provided the trust by my constituents to represent their interests, but also to be 1/15th of the city legislative body to make these decisions. And I'm not going to rubber stamp things that just don't make financial sense.
You mentioned the 15 members of the city council, right? A couple quotes from you recently. There's clearly a shift in politics of the council. We have different ideology with respect on how we need to be making sure that the city is safe. And I've seen that. I've spoken out against that. I don't want to mention any names, but we've sort of seen the results of that. We were actually speaking before the show, me and somebody on your staff, about how the recent elections took place in a different time, of recent, but LA was a different place and our ideologies may have been different. And now kind of maybe the chickens are coming home to roost, as far as some of the people who were elected may have had ideas that on paper perhaps were good idealistically, but we're seeing the outcome of those votes. And it's us as people, that voted people in office. But with that shift in ideology, we're seeing some negative results. We just are. So how do we combat that?
I don't know how to combat it. What I try to do is demonstrate a better way, a better path. And I use my district as the example of how to achieve that. In the Northeast, in Mission Division, in my district, for example, they've reduced response times to just a little over 6 minutes, taking it from 8 minutes to 6 minutes on a call. Those types of improvements are, for me, demonstrations of how we can be more efficient, how we can do things better, and how we can achieve greater outcomes in public safety. I don't pretend that we need to also make sure that we are right-sizing all of our resources in a manner that actually gets to the root of the issues. Yeah. So, for example, LAPD shouldn't be responding to people suffering with mental health crisis, because we've seen how that's gone awry, and they don't prepare themselves and train to respond for that. So I led the creation of unarmed crisis response for that reason, so that we could help right size a lot of those resources. But there are those that frankly don't believe in any enforcement tactics at several levels. And I think that's problematic. And I've had to have some hard conversations with some of my colleagues when I said, well, this is what happens when you strip away all the regulations and oversight and you let people just run amok. If there's no enforcement, if there's no consequences for bad behavior, how do you think it's going to correct itself on its own?
Thank you. And that's, again, the crime narrative. I saw the stats. I reported on the stats. Yes, it's down, which, overall we're thankful for. Mm-hmm. But again, it just doesn't feel like the people don't feel safe. And there is, unfortunately, an anti-police narrative that's threading its way through Los Angeles and elsewhere. How do you balance that? I mean, you did mention, unarmed crisis response, which is absolutely a good solution and a good option. But, I'm somebody who's not been shy about saying that we need a police force that can do its job, right? And we need a funded police force to be able to do that. And there are bad apples and there are absolutely horrible, tragic things that have happened, from the police, truthfully. But at the same time, you can't just brush it aside and you can't just say, oh no, we need to defund and we need to. So how do you balance that, both politically and pragmatically?
Well, I explain to people, and again, this is personal experience. When I was, I think it was 5 years old, our home was first burglarized and my dad was on duty. So he wasn't able to be there. And I remember LAPD coming out, Foothill Division coming out, taking the report, sitting there with, my sister and I and my mom were there with my grandfather. And I remember having that sense of, the sense of, vulnerability. When you, as a little girl, you come home, your piggy bank's broke, like everything is disheveled. Yeah. You have those memories. So I still remember that to this day and what that felt like. But we also then subsequently organized neighborhood watches in our community. We came together as a neighborhood to help protect one another and worked with LAPD constructively. And ultimately it did end up, they ended up finding the perpetrators and securing some of our personal belongings. So, I'm informed by both experiences, both of also having grown up in an era that did watch Rodney King get beat. Right. So in my district, right? In the district that I represent. Yeah. So it's a full circle moment where I understand both. And I worked as public safety chair to help LAPD build more trust in the community, to help show the fruits of their work and what they do, but to also make sure that, again, reform is a continuum. It isn't something that you just check the box and do. It's an ongoing exercise, and I feel it's really important that LAPD continue to reform itself, that they continue to develop engagement. The feelings that people have are not born out of nothing.
Correct.
There are trust issues, and we have to continue to work on building and restoring that trust. And it's incredibly important that they engage with sometimes their biggest detractors to help.
Look, I'll say this from personal experience. My dad was, I don't want to call him an anti-police, but he was an old hippie. He didn't have warm and fuzzy feelings toward the LAPD. but he used to always say, he's like, the LAPD needs to be out in the streets, shaking hands and in the community. And, you know, like you see sometimes a meme will go around, LAPD officer plays basketball one-on-one with the, you know, and I know they have jobs to do, big, important, but when every interaction is negative, people see them as negative, and that's a tough relationship to kind of overcome. And
well, it's, you know, remember, we're in the service business.
Right.
I don't care if you're an LA City firefighter, a council member, or an LAPD officer, or a street service worker.
Yeah.
We are in the service business, and we are here to care for our constituents. And every interaction that you have, and that's everybody, whether it's someone answering the phone or it's someone responding to someone in crisis, your bedside manner and how you respond and treat constituents and engage with them is either going to help engender greater trust or less so. So I think it's really important that every officer, every civilian employee that's answering the phone, and it doesn't matter if it's LAPD, the fire department, or a constituent calling for a 311 service.
Right.
The reality is that when people are calling you for help and you're calling your city, you expect your city to treat you with respect.
Correct.
And I think that is something that we're missing, where everyone understands the kind of alchemy of like all of our roles, of that we are here to be of service to the people. Yeah. And when everyone shows up with that understanding and that mindset, I think people will feel better about their city.
Great response on that. And speaking of feeling great about your city, I think an important thing that we've seen the negative side of are these legacy businesses shutting down, you know, whether it's restaurants or just, you know, standard mom and pop stores in neighborhoods. And we've talked about that ad nauseum here. But it is a very difficult climate to do business here in Los Angeles. Yeah. And you've been outspoken with your advocacy for small businesses. Speak on that for a little bit, because that really, to me, is the core of building the community and building a strong economy and building a strong, positive atmosphere for all of Los Angeles.
Well, those are jobs too. Those are jobs, and they are also an important part of our tax base. When we want to talk about how we hire or offer more city services or invest in our infrastructure, we need a strong local business tax base to support us in the city. And so it really, for me, it's very hard to watch so many of these legacy restaurants close. It breaks my heart.
Right.
And I know how difficult. I used to waitress. I remember, you know, I know how difficult. You know, I love the restaurant industry. Yeah. I'm the dubbed foodie of the council, right. And I have, you know, I have a lot of chef friends in this city because I think we are a culinary mecca. Absolutely. You know, LA from our, you know, we have all the food of the world here in Los Angeles. Right. And we're better than Epcot Center, right? So
a real life Epcot.
We are a real live Epcot. And I think it's really important that we show up and support these industries that are struggling. But their struggle is born out of, again, what the other impacts of the economy from the entertainment industry that has struggled. You know, still recovering from COVID. A lot of them never did. Yep. There's all of the ripple effects. You saw what happened in downtown when they had curfews, for example, as people were just, some of their most busiest times were affected. And so we have to remember as a government, and this is, you know, I say this to all of my colleagues and the mayor, we have to remember that each decision that we make is either going to support or hinder their ability to continue to sustain their business. And it's really important, I think, for us to show up for them, because those are jobs, that's a tax base that we need to sustain. But by the way, that is what is uniquely Los Angeles. When I think of LA, it is the food of the world is here. The music of the world is here. It's, you know, we offer all of these amenities for people, but we don't, and it's not the city providing it. It's people that have invested in our city. So we need to show up and support them.
And we need to make it easier to do business. And again, you've been a big advocate of this. I just want to talk about this a little bit because I think it's sort of related. You also launched LA Financial Literacy Hub.
Yeah.
Which is part of an existing app called Summa Wealth. But that's where you are actually educating and uplifting younger community members to be financially responsible, which is so important because we never learn about that. Talk about that just for a second, because I think that is related on a scale to what we're talking about with the businesses.
I'm a big supporter of young people in our city, and we don't have a lot of support for young people in our city. The Youth Development Department was something that I fought and created alongside the youth of our city to make sure that we were providing services that met their needs.
Yeah.
Financial literacy was among their greatest concerns, that they don't learn this at school anymore.
No.
And so I made it a point to work with our Youth Development Department to identify what would be a good base to educate young people. And there's videos and whatnot. There's a lot of other financial institutions that provide it, but I didn't want it to be affiliated with a financial institution because then they're trying to sell you their product.
Of course.
I wanted something independent of that. Summa Wealth has a culturally relevant manner of, and a fun way of educating young people. And I found out more adults have actually signed up for it.
It's important, and people don't know. We don't
They
learn
really don't.
now, especially with all the new technology and everything, and money with the Apple Pay doesn't even seem like you're spending money.
Right.
Like it's, oh man.
And the bigger issue right now, what I saw, the timeliness and the urgency of needing this is because sadly, with so many families getting separated, you're seeing younger people becoming the overnight head of household. And I wanted to prepare young people with the tools and their families with the tools that they needed in order to be prepared for the worst case scenarios. And sadly, that's our obligation as a government. We should be supporting families, not just with, covering their check, their rent check.
Right.
This is about giving them the tools to actually help sustain themselves because we don't have sufficient resources to just cover everybody's rent.
The education to help them grow internally. Absolutely. I know we're running a little bit low on time, but there's a couple big issues I want to get to. One, again, it's a pet issue for me. You mentioned earlier. Let's talk about the Olympics.
Yeah.
LA 28. I'm going to be honest. I am so gung-ho.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm excited for it, but I'm a little bit worried. As time goes by and I see these, the sustainability plan that came out and all this kind of thing, which again is great on paper, but just seems like a massive, seemed like a lot of lip service. If I can be honest, I don't want to,
You can be honest.
sugarcoat it. Are we prepared for the games? Number one. And number two, I loved one of your quotes, so back in the 84 Olympics, the Valley, much to my chagrin, I was a young boy at the time, so I didn't have any say in it. But in retrospect, the Valley did not want to be part of the Olympics, right? And the Valley homeowners are very special breed, and they wanted it away from the Valley, which would have been so amazing. And this time it is coming to the Valley, right? And now people are embracing it, and it's great. And skateboarding is going to be in the Valley. My son's a big skateboarder, so we're already excited and talking about getting tickets and everything. But one of your quotes, because the Olympics will tend to favor certain demographics, certain neighborhoods, and especially in Los Angeles, a city that's more than half Latino, if I'm not mistaken, needs to be represented and supporting the Latino communities, which is basically all of our communities, right? And so your quote, which I love, was, "I'll be damned if that happens again with these games," meaning that the 84 games only had, we're in the more affluent, let's call it what it is, whiter communities. "I'll be damned if that happens again with these games, especially in light of what our community is going through, and especially in light of what the community is going through." So talk about that for a little bit with the Olympics and what, A, are we ready? B, what you expect and hope in the Valley and in your district and those important neighborhoods.
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that we're ready right now, but
Right.
we certainly can be. If everyone focuses on eliminating some of the noise, on creating other agendas or opportunities or investments and distractions, we need to focus on the salient parts that we need to focus on to make these games work. And I think that comes to not obligating ourselves for new investments of projects that are not going to materialize. I think it's about
No car Olympics, come on.
just the basics.
Right.
Focus on the basics and how do we best prepare for these games? And I think the quote was also born on the fact that there was an absence of any Latino representation in the flag transfer at ceremonies. And I thought that was incredibly tone deaf.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been a little bit of a thorn with LA 28, just calling it out, but I'm not going to allow our community to get erased from the map. What Paris did well was the inclusivity and history telling of their city in the Olympics. They also did an outstanding job of creating legacy businesses to be buoyed by the financial investment that was coming.
Important talk. Yeah.
Right. Good. So that part is really important, which is why I advocate for our economic workforce development department. Like, this is where we need to stand up and strengthen investment in local businesses. And I want them to be a part of these games. The problem is there hasn't been a lot of focus in as much, and again, the mayor's budget eliminated the one department that would have a direct hand in supporting that.
Right.
What I think is really important right now is that we don't clutter our minds and agendas with things that are just not going to work. Let's focus on what we do best.
Yeah.
Let's engage people to be part of these games, and let's make sure that there are games that are accessible and reflective of everybody in the city.
Right.
And so the diversity of our city was supposed to be the main stage event for the Olympics. And how do you leave out in the flag transfer the largest demographic of community? Yeah. I mean, not a mariachi, not a charro, not anything in that. And that
but
was...
you had Anthony Kiedis.
Right. Well, listen, I love the Chili Peppers. I love the I'm a music nerd. I love it. Yeah. But it's like, come on, how do you not have us? Totally. And that's the part where I was just like, what the hell's going on? And so, again, we need to focus on putting our best foot forward as a city.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone focusing on, we got to get ready for the games. No, we got to get ready for the people today here in LA. I am not, what really upsets me when everyone's kind of got this goalpost for 3 years from now, or because FIFA is coming. Mm-hmm. You know what? Angelinos deserve this now.
Yeah.
And that's my problem, is everybody has this lengthy goalpost. And for me, my goalpost is here. Every single day, we should be all showing up to make sure that our city is cleaner, is safer, is more financially secure for the businesses that want to operate here, and are creating jobs that are going to help buoy the economic mobility for families in the city. And that's what we need to be focused on.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that. I have nothing to add to that. Thank you. The second part of this, and this is important, in light of what our community is going through, the ICE raids, there's a big Supreme Court decision this week. Without opening, I mean, that's beyond a can of worms. How are we going to deal with that for the foreseeable future in Los Angeles?
It's...
Especially in Los Angeles.
Well, and I'm still trying to understand how the president is going to insert himself into these games. And there are no words. We're watching the complete erasure of constitutional rights. And it's among all the other things that we're struggling with, to have to combat that and provide people support during this time. It's, I feel every day the target. Not just in my community, but as a Latino elected leader, the target is on us all. And but I proudly have a position that allows me to use my voice every day. And that's what I show up to do. And I'm not going to be apologetic for it. For as long as they have me, I am here to do the work for the people of this city. And I am really honored and grateful to do it every day. And I'll show up for everybody. And, in any neighborhood, it doesn't matter. If you are being targeted, I've always been the person to stand up to bullies, but I've always been the person to also stand up for the most vulnerable and helping people and meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
And none of that is going to change, because I know how grateful I am for my family's opportunities, for that great life that my dad was able to provide our family, and my mom to be a stay-at-home mom. That doesn't happen anymore. Right. But I'm really grateful that I had all of those things. And this city gave that to me and gave that to my family and countless other families. So I'm going to continue to show up to try and provide the same opportunity for other families that are no different than mine.
Well, thank you for that. On that note, what are the main things that we can do to swing this narrative back to the positive in Los Angeles?
You know, I want Angelenos to continue to show up as they have. I think right now, showing the solidarity even in support of our immigrant communities, I think is really important
It's the
because
lifeblood
people
of Los
feel,
Angeles,
right, and people are feeling very isolated, scared. And so we have to show up, just as we did as COVID. You know, I derived the We Are One L.A. because of COVID. And I said, the best of us is realized during these most difficult times. And I've seen us do it before. That sadly, our resilience continues to get tested, but I've seen us do it before. I know we're going to do it again. And I just have faith in Angelenos. I have faith in our ability to come together. And I just, you know, I want us to showcase the very best of Los Angeles, but I want us to all be constructive in how we do that in a manner that actually, you know, and that goes for my colleagues. I really want us to work together better to ensure that we are not advancing one's political agenda, but really advancing what the people of Los Angeles need and what businesses need so that we can continue to make LA the greatest city in the world.
It's spoken like greatest city on the globe. That's my line right there. And strong leaders such as yourself, I have to ask you before we close, what are your ambitions beyond this term?
You know, I know it's important to show up every day to demonstrate the value of what I bring as a leader. And I focus on doing that. I really believe that when you show up and you show tangible results, not provide the speech, you know, not empty rhetoric, but actual tangible results, I believe the opportunities are limitless. And I don't know what the future holds because I've watched the future change very quickly from what people have planned for their careers. I'm a workhorse. I'm not a show horse. Right. So I think it's really important to show up, do the work, and we'll see what the future holds. But I will be a proud public servant as long as the public will have me.
On that note, Vin Scully's famous quote is, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Your plans,
yeah,
right? Absolutely.
So there you go.
Best laid plans. It's, and that's why I just focus on, you know, showing a body of work that demonstrates what my leadership looks like, because I think that's the most tangible thing that we can offer people.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of the San Fernando Valley and as a native of your district, Council District 7, I want to say thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
For always showing up, for being there on frankly, in my opinion, the right side of issues a lot more often than not. And for having that strong voice and for this relationship that we've developed. I really cherish that. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you very much for being here on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, Council District 7, and, you know, always a positive advocate of Los Angeles, even in these challenging times. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, LA, it's been a minute.